and welcome everyone. I am very excited about today because it is the first time I am running an event like tonight, and also the first time that I'm doing a series of events back to back. So, like with everything that I do to experiment, you know, you get to see the first trial. All right, so this is Repurpose Your Purpose, and this event is part of a series called Winterfest. So I like to always make sure people are in the right place by putting my slides. And Winterfest, as I said, is a series of 5 events over 5 days. So today is the first one, and if you're new to my work, my name is Aurora Menegallo, and I have a program and a website called Repurpose Your Purpose, and I work with people to change careers. And I work with people from all over the world, and I'm based in Los Angeles. I also like this idea of the Winterfest because I can use old pictures of snow, and we don't get snow here in the city, so that's nice. All right, okay, so today it's really about timeless wisdom, and it's really about that time that I don't know if you love this. When I was a kid, I really loved to sit and listen to a story or read a story. I remember I had these tapes where I would draw and listen to fairy tales, and sometimes I could do that for hours. And there's some magic in listening to stories and just letting your mind wander. So, as I was thinking about, how do I introduce what we're doing here today, I thought of something maybe a little strange, but this is what popped in my mind. What popped in my mind is the Arabian Nights, the 1001 Nights, right? That old story of there was this king, and every night he would get married and kill his wife. And Sherazad says, I'm volunteering. And every night she tells the king a different story. And every night the king doesn't kill her because he wants to hear the next story. And you can hear that story of Sherazad as a literal story about some woman telling stories, and it's quite scary. But you can also hear it in a deeper way. And in a way, the king is that part of us that gets bitter and negative and really stuck on what doesn't work and lacks imagination. It only sees things that it can't bring things to life. And the part of us that can tell stories, that can hear stories, that can imagine stories, that is the part that comes alive in creativity, right? And Scheherazade, she shows up and she volunteers because she's brave. She knows that's where life is. So that's the spirit of tonight. The spirit is the spirit of let your imagination, your wisdom, your creativity, your feelings, your aliveness, whatever it is that calls you, let it come alive in your listening. So that's the spirit. And I invite you to have a piece of paper or a journal and a pen so you can jot down anything that comes up for you. So the way it's gonna work is I'm gonna start with a minute of silence, and I'm gonna then introduce each storyteller. And after each story, you're gonna have a few minutes to just capture something of what comes for you. Or I'm not gonna play any music or anything, or you can just sit in silence and just stay with that feeling or those thoughts. So each story is very different, its feeling is gonna be different, and that's also an invitation for this journey to be here in 1 hour of opening up our heart and our listening to our own wisdom. So, as I always do at every of my events, I like to start with a minute of silence. Let me just put my slide right here, and you can join me right now in 1 minute of silence. And thank you. So, if you haven't muted yourself, now is the time. And I want to thank all the storytellers who are here today. So we have 5 amazing people who are taking the time here to co-create this space with me, and I'm so thankful. And so you got to meet them one by one. And the first storyteller is Yuko Miyahara. So Yuko is originally from Japan, and I invited all people I adore tonight, and Yuko was my first mentor at Toastmasters. So also I have to thank her for all that I do in my events, because she taught me a lot. And Yuko is going to tell a story from Japan, from Shinto mythology, that's called The Sun Goddess and the Cave.
Great, thank you. Long, long time ago, when Japan wasn't even a country yet, there was a place high up in the sky where gods and goddesses lived. There were 8 million gods and goddesses in all. And on top of that, to rule them all was the sun goddess. It was the female goddess that ruled all the 8 million gods and goddesses. She was beautiful. She was bright. And she was ruling everything with her benevolence and love and warmth and kindness. It was a wonderful world. But she had a brother. The brother was the storm god, and he loves to make trouble. He was big and violent and wants to make trouble all over the place. He would go and create mudslides. He will bring some tornado. He will bring some tsunami. The world was chaotic when he was there, but he kept making trouble, like destroying shrines, taking up all the crops. Well, as the benevolent, amazing big sister, the sun goddess says, oh, he has going through something. I understand. But one day, when the sun goddess was weaving with her weaving machine, all of a sudden, the big horse came down. The laughter of the storm god you can hear, and he's running away. He just destroyed her weaving machine and killed the horse. The sun goddess was really upset. This is it. I cannot stand my brother anymore. So she went into the big cave and closed the cave with a humongous rock. And the world went dark. All the gods and goddesses got panicked. The whole world was in chaos. There is no sun. Everybody turned on the torch and tried to find out what was going on. And they found out where she was and tried to open that big rock, but it doesn't budge because the sun goddess put the magical power around it. All the strong god went there, tried to open, does not budge. All the goddesses went there to beg her, please, goddess, come out, please. But nothing. So one goddess said to all the god council that, sun goddess loves to party and she loves all the fun. So what if we're going to throw this amazing festival right in front of the cave? I bet she can't resist that fun and she's going to come out. Well, that's worth a try, everybody said. So they created a big bonfire right near the cave. And somebody started the music. People started, the gods started to clap. And somebody started to sing. And the one goddess started to dance. And she danced and danced and danced. And it was so funny the way she danced that everybody started to laugh, belly laugh, like a real laugh. So inside the cave, the sun goddess is listening and she's thinking, without me, what kind of fun they're having? I mean, I'm not there. How can they be having fun? So she got curious and slowly opened that big rock and peeked. The golden light spilled out. Everybody started to get excited, but pretended that they don't notice and kept on cheering and dancing. She looked outside and there's something golden outside. So she asked one of the goddess, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys so excited? And the goddess says, oh, the sun goddess. I know we thought you are the only goddess of all, but we found the greater goddess than you. So we are celebrating the coming of this amazing goddess. What? The sun goddess was a little jealous. What is going on? She really wanted to see this new goddess that they're talking about. So she even opened a little bit more and looked, and there's a golden light, and she can see something beautiful out there, but she can't quite see it yet. So she opened even more and stepped out. And at that moment, the other god pushed her. And so she had to come out. And the strong god put the rock right in front of the cave so she can't go back in. The world was bright again. And when she really looked, the beautiful goddess that she thought she was looking at was herself. One of the gods put the big mirror in front of her and she was looking her own reflection. The storm god was exiled to some other faraway land, and all the sun was restored, all the light came back, and everybody was happy and at peace again. Today, I wanted to tell you this old story that I heard in my childhood about sun goddess in the cave, because the world recently has been crazy with the weather's been crazy. So storm, destroyer god is going all over the place, creating wars, COVID, you name it. The world feels like a scary, dark place. And we're all like sun goddess in a way. We have a light from within. And if you're like me, maybe with the west outside is chaotic and dark, you may want to just hide away and hide your light. I hope this story will serve as a reminder that we all are like sun goddess. And when the world is dark, it's much better with your light in it. So don't hide your light, step out and share your light. Aurora, thank you very much for letting me share the story.
Thank you so much, Yuko. Thank you. And I want to let everybody here, for a few minutes, just 3 minutes, if you want to capture some of what came up for you. And we'll just sit here in silence. So, one more minute, and then we'll move to the second story. So, the next speaker is Lwin. Sue is an Australian expat who's been here in Los Angeles for 6 years and works in social media intelligence. I had this wonderful conversation with Sue where we really shared our love for books and storytellings and great stories and imagination. And so I am excited to introduce her as she is going to tell one of my favorite fairy tales, The Ugly Duckling. Take it away.
It was summertime, and the sun was shining brightly. In a field by the water's edge, a mother duck watched over her nest anxiously as she waited for her eggs to hatch. Finally, the eggs started to crack, and one duckling after another appeared. But the biggest egg remained still. After what seemed like forever, the last egg finally started to hatch. Out from it emerged a large gray duck. The mother duck looked at him and then back at her other children. How ugly he was in comparison. For a moment, she wondered if he was even truly one of her own. But his egg had been in the pile with all the others. How could he not be? The mother duck took the ducklings into the duckyard and introduced them to the other ducks. The others straight away noticed the big, ugly duckling and said to themselves, "He is so ugly. We don't want him in our group." So they flew at him and pecked at him. His mother told the others, "Leave him alone." But even his brothers and sisters bullied him. "How did you get so ugly?" they would ask. "You are no sibling to us." Every day was a living nightmare for the poor ugly duckling who was teased by all. The other ducks and hens pecked at him, and his brothers and sisters shunned him. Then the farm girl would kick him. Finally, he could stand the torment no longer and ran away from his family and the other farm animals. He came upon some wild geese who looked at him curiously, but also claimed that he was ugly. Then the duckling continued on to a hut with a cat and a hen, where he stayed for a short while before moving on. Each place that the ugly duckling went to, he couldn't escape the taunts and stares. Nobody ever had anything good to say to him. Nobody ever treated him like a friend or like he belonged. Eventually, the duckling concluded that the best place for him was to be alone, free of the judgment of others. In his wanderings, the duckling eventually found a body of water to swim upon and made his dwelling there, swimming alone and foraging for food each day. A long time passed, and the seasons changed from autumn to winter to spring. During this time, the duckling had lived peacefully on his own and uneventfully. During this time, as it started to get warm again, the duckling ventured out on the water more often. He'd resigned himself to a life lived alone, if it meant that he could live in peace, without anybody teasing him or making him feel bad. That day, the duckling ventured out on the water. He took in the cloudless blue sky and the sun shining down on him. As he looked up into the sky, he noticed a flock of white birds soaring overhead. He continued staring up above, because never in his life had he ever seen such beautiful creatures. The birds flew as one family, gliding smoothly on the wind. How beautiful they are, he thought to himself. Deep down, he wished he could be as beautiful and as admired, but he knew it would never be possible. He stayed still, watching them for a long moment. It seemed that they were getting closer and closer to him. The flock of white birds landed on the water gracefully. Now that they were closer, he could clearly see their elegant, long white necks. He slowly swam a bit closer, hoping to admire them from a point up close. As he came nearer to them, one passed and startled him. "Your feathers are the whitest I've ever seen," the swan remarked. The duckling looked around, wondering who the swan could be talking to. As he looked around, he caught a glimpse of himself in the water. It was him. Somehow, he had transformed into a beautiful swan. He had never been an ugly duck at all. Joyous, he joined the other swans, and they welcomed him into their flock, heaping praise on how beautiful he was. He was one of them, and he had been all along. Like the poor ugly duckling, some of us pick up limiting beliefs as a child. Sometimes we outgrow these beliefs, just as the ugly duckling did. But sometimes these limiting beliefs are carried into adulthood, causing problems in our lives and making us feel that we're less than we are. As we get older and journey deeper inwards within ourselves, we should seek to recognize these as thoughts that hold us back. We are not the sum of what we've been told, and we always have the power to change our own beliefs and our own realities. Thank you, Aurora.
Thank you, Sue. So let's just take 3 minutes to jot down if there's anything that came up for you. Do you want to capture just sitting quiet? So 1 minute before our next story. All right, and I am really excited to hear a story from Katherine Griffith. I had the pleasure to have her as a guest at another one of my events years ago in person, and so I couldn't wait for another opportunity to invite her back. So Katherine Griffith is the head teacher at Zest Center Los Angeles, and also a performer and a writer. And she will tell us a story based on a Native American myth, and the story is called The Old Woman and the Buzzards.
So this tale is a tale from the Caddo people of East Texas. Buzzards are so common in Texas. I went home to San Antonio in October, and in the middle of a big city, there were buzzards flying around. And I always say to myself, buzzards spied, something died. So anyway, a long time ago, a very old woman was thought to be a bit crazy because her ways did not fit in with the tribal culture. So the leaders kicked her out. She settled into a meager little hovel by herself on the outskirts of the tribal camp. She actually loved the solitude, and although feeble, she managed just fine. Her years had taught her patience, peace, and perspective, and she lived in harmony with nature, talking with trees, gardening with bees, howling with coyotes, slithering with snakes, skipping around with rabbits and squirrels. One day, she found 3 bloodied buzzards with broken wings, crying in pain. They would surely die if left on their own. The old woman took the buzzards home, knowing her old tribe considered buzzards bad luck and would never help. Since the beginning of creation, buzzards did not know their place in the world. Unlucky and ugly, buzzards came into existence covered head to toe with big, goofy-looking feathers, but they could not fly. They were awkward and mostly failed as they hunted for live food to survive. That's why the tribe hated and shunned the buzzard. Because they had not yet become Death Eaters, stench, rot, decay, and darkness permeated the land. Because they had not realized their purpose as scavengers, the buzzards inevitably got injured while hunting. The 3 buzzards the old woman found had just tried to eat a live wild boar who nearly killed them. Seeing beyond their appearance and the tribal prejudice, the old woman immediately rescued the helpless wake of buzzards. She joyfully fed them, tended to their wounds, and gave them shelter. The old wise woman knew all about using resources, living off meager stashes, and scraping by with grace and dignity. She also recognized the true potential these buzzards had to live better lives and fulfill their destiny. The buzzards noticed this as the old woman cared for their wounds and paid close attention to her words. While they recovered, the old woman taught the buzzards how to keep alive and survive under any conditions, honoring the earth and respecting their resources. Then she taught them about using their natural-born gifts to become Death Eaters, one of the most essential jobs of life. Without the function of eating the darkening decay in the world, there is no room for light to enter. The lessons and healing continued. Once fully renewed, The 3 buzzards spread their wings and flew off into the Texas sunset that looked like a big smiling face. The setting sun formed the nose. Above it, left and right, flew 2 buzzard-like eyes, their wings like eyebrows, and below it, at the center, the 3rd buzzard's wings formed a wide, smiling mouth. The old woman went back to her humble existence, knowing she had changed the lives of those birds, something no one else would do because buzzards were so horribly misjudged. She hoped by changing their lives, the buzzards might change the world. Time passed, but one day, as she was fetching water, the old woman was struck with a deep sadness. She was tired of being old, outcast, and overwhelmingly alone. Her life was nearing its end, and it grieved her that she would never see another sunrise, garden with bees, talk to trees, or howl with coyotes at sunset. Sitting by the river, the old woman cried her heart out. Suddenly, she looked up and saw her old buzzard friends. But they looked so different, bigger and stronger, and they'd lost all their feathers around their heads. They seemed so confident, self-assured, and to her, absolutely gorgeous. One buzzard gently spoke to her and said, "The end of your life is near, and a new beginning will follow. Because you changed our lives, you also changed the course of nature. By saving us and teaching us, you made a way for a new life to come forth into this world. The Great Spirit is pleased and gives you this gift. Because of your kindness and wisdom, you will be the immortal Great Mother to the buzzards. To do so, you must do 3 things. Die to become one with us, leave this place to be our spirit mother, accept our love and care for you as you continue to teach the world your ways, encouraging renewal." The old woman was so ready to be free and move on to a new way of life where she would be loved and her wisdom would benefit others. Accepting these terms, she became immortal and happily stepped into the role as the great mother to the buzzard clan. This unlikely union launched a renewal upon the land. No longer did beings have to live in darkness and decay. No longer regarded as bad luck, the buzzards became highly esteemed as divine Death Eaters and the symbols of salvation, making way for light upon the earth. In her immortality, the old woman too became a legendary great mother, teaching the buzzards to be masterful mothers themselves, like she had been to them. To this day, buzzards are considered to be consummate mothers in Native American and many other cultures around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katherine. So let's take our 3 minutes here to jot down what insights came up for us. and 1 minute before the next story. So next, I'm happy to introduce you, if you don't know him already, Ken Primus. Ken is the podcast host of Threads of Enlightenment, which is a top-ranked podcast on personal development. And I had the pleasure of being a guest on it and had a wonderful time talking to Ken. So today, Ken is going to tell us a story from the Old Testament, and the story title is Calling on the Sun.
Here we go. This story is not too long and not too old, but hopefully it can help. On October 30th, 1207 BCE, there was this young man by the name of Joshua. He did something that science has proven to be true. The year was actually 3,229 years ago, on October 30th. He was in the battle with a group of people called the Amorites. The Amorites are the sons and descendants of the Nephilims. The Nephilims were those that offspring between angels and the female. They were the giants of the land. These men were the descendants, the Bible calls them men of renown. And there was a tribe of them, and the children of Israel is coming to fight them. As they began to engage in this battle, this is for their inheritance, if you will. This is something that they were promised, just as you and I are promised things. And they began to engage in this battle with these giants that are surrounding them. And as they fought all day long, they're losing as the sun begins to drift and take his leave. And the children of Israel are fighting. And Joshua notices something. He begins to notice that as the sun begins to drift away, that the people began to lose their strength, their energy began to lose and dissipate as well. And so he now looks at this situation that is before him. It's a beautiful opportunity, as I call it. And this beautiful opportunity presents to him as he noticed his people and his generations, his promise, all of these things being sipped away as time drifts, the sun moves. He begins to look around to see what can he do in the natural realm to solve this situation that is around us. As he looks, the sun keeps drifting. His people are losing. He begins to look within himself and realize the answer is not in the natural realm. I have to do something for my inheritance, for my people. And he begins to look at the sun and he sees and understands his destiny lies in that sun. And so he recognized this and realized that the answer then, I have to go somewhere else. And he goes into the divine that is in him to solve the situation. He looks then at the sun and he says, I need you to stay still. He also spoke to the moon in that story and says, I need you to cooperate with me. As you see in your destiny and mine, we have to reach inside. He begins and he spoke to the sun, and the sun obeyed him. The moon obeyed him. This is a fascinating story because we were told from my perspective that God created the earth. Then when this man spoke, the creations of God listened to him. And so I must come to the revelation that God resides in me, because it was God who spoke to that sun that resides in us. And so you and I are looking around into the natural for some of the answers that come before us, these situations. But the answers are in you. You have the God quality, because he said, you are made in my image and my likeness. So you and I then have that authority that God, the divine nature that is residing in you and I, awaiting for you to command something. And so I want to encourage all of you guys to seek the answers from the divine that resides within you. Aurora, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And I was muted. It was my turn to be muted. And you know what happens next? I want to give everybody 3 minutes to really sit with whatever came up for you. And if you want to write it down, write down your insights. So we have 1 minute left before our final story. I participated in a beautiful meditation, and that's how I met Paulette Pipe, our next storyteller. Paulette is a mesmerizing meditation facilitator, podcast host, and a professional sacred space holder and ordained minister. Paulette asked me if she could break the rules and tell a personal story, something that happened. And I said, well, why not? There's a rule breaker in me, and I guess somebody here has to break the rules. So I am really excited to listen to Paulette's story called A Message from the Heart.
Thank you, Aurora. Trust me to be the rule breaker. So the story I want to share happened to me in India 2 years ago, January. Oh, it's almost 3 years. In January, it'll be 3 years. I was visiting the Gandhi ashram with a group. I was on retreat with a group from Service Space, and we went to visit the Gandhi ashram. And while we were there, the rapper and humanitarian Nimesh Patel, also known as Nemo, was our group leader. So what happened was we were all broken into different groups, and there was somebody showing us around the ashram, and Nemo was the head of our group. And so he would take us to the different rooms and the different places in the ashram and tell us the history and the story. And before we left that particular room, we would stop for a minute of silence. Our final stop was the Gandhi ashram, Gandhi's residence. And when we went in there at first, there were other groups that were there before us, so it was a little bit crowded. And because you take your shoes off before you go inside, I was being miserable because the floor was the stone floor and my feet were cold. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go back outside in the sun and put my shoes back on. So I went outside while the rest of the group were inside waiting for another group to come out so they could hear the history of the room. And then Nemo called myself and another friend back into the room because we were going to have our time of meditation silence, but this time it was going to be a little bit longer than the 1 minute. The room was empty. It was just the 5 of us or 6 of us in the room. And I'm still complaining about the cold floor because now we have to sit on it. Oh, bar humbug. This is all internal, of course. So I put down my shawl on the floor and sat down and made myself comfortable. And being a mindfulness teacher, went straight into the mindfulness aspect of everything I was thinking and feeling and where in my body I was feeling it. And then very quickly went into a very deep meditation. I was not asleep. I was conscious of everything around me. I could still hear, I could still feel, but I felt the room fill up with non-physical entities. And there was a big group behind my back, and they felt like entities, like people I would have known in this life or maybe another. And then before me, I saw Gandhi, and he was dressed in white. And he wasn't emaciated like you see in the pictures. He was just beautiful, actually. And there was an entourage of non-physical entities behind him as well. And I almost wanted to pinch myself. Am I dreaming? Because I still have my eyes closed in this meditation. Am I dreaming? Did I fall asleep? No, I'm still, lucid. So then in this meditative vision, Gandhi comes over to me and he takes hold of my elbow and he says, stand up. And I'm sort of looking around in my mind with my eyes closed. And I'm like, okay, am I making this up? And then he did it again. He held my arm and he said, stand up, look behind you. Look at the support you have behind you. And then within a few moments, Nemo ended the meditation and we got up and left, or I got up and left to go to the prayer garden, which is also in the ashram on the grounds. Now it's called a prayer garden, but it's actually pebbles and gravel, but it's where Gandhi would pray with his disciples every day. I was fine when I left the room, the residence, but when I got into the prayer garden, I broke down crying. I was just so overwhelmed by the experience, by what I felt in the room, by what I heard, by what I experienced. I could not stop sobbing. So I'm sitting on the gravel, not complaining anymore. I'm sitting on the gravel in the prayer garden, and then the other cohorts in the retreat, the other retreat participants start joining us in the prayer garden. And I need to wipe my eyes and blow my nose because I'm sobbing. So I reach for my purse, which is sitting beside me. And as I reach for my purse, I see something in the gravel. Now, when I came out of the ashram, I remember saying and thinking to myself, am I making this up? I need a sign. I need a sign to know that I wasn't making this up. The room that we had just come out of is called the heart of the ashram, Gandhi's residence. So I reach for my purse, and as I'm reaching for my purse, I see this object in the gravel. It's very tiny, but it catches my attention. So I wipe my face and then I pick it up, and it's a pebble, a very small pebble. And everywhere you turn it, it's the shape. Oh, it's so tiny. It's the shape of a heart. So that was like, okay, that's my sign. We just came out of the heart of the ashram, and here amongst all those little pebbles with tears streaming down my eyes, I spot this tiny little pebble that's a triple heart. Okay, we left after that and went for lunch, but I was so overwhelmed. I just wanted to sit by myself. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to really internalize what had happened. And one of the cohorts came over, one of the volunteers actually came over to speak to me. And I was trying not to engage, but then I thought, I'll just share with him what happened. So I told Krishan what had just happened, what I had experienced. And he said, hang on a minute, you're not going to believe this. He opens his phone and scrolls through his phone and stops at a particular picture. Now, Krishan lives in Ahmedabad, across the street from the ashram, and goes over every day to water a particular tree that was over there with his daughter. But what he shows me from his phone is a picture he took that morning where a tree had been cut down. And when you look at the tree from above, the circles, the rings in the circle are the shape of a heart. So that was my second sign. When we returned to the retreat center, I spoke to the retreat leader, Nipun, and I was sharing with him what had happened. Again, I'm reluctant to tell everybody the story because I don't want people to think I'm psychotic. But anyway, I told him, and he was really supportive and really got it. And as I told him, I said, I don't know what it means. I don't know why I'm being told to stand up, why, Gandhi was encouraging me to stand up in the middle of that room, in the middle of that meditation. And Nipun said, that's a great experience, a great message. But what if it's not just for you? What if it's for all of us? So for the past 2 years, I've been like Mary in the Bible, pondering this in my heart. And I share the story very rarely, but I do feel like Nipun was right, that we are all being called to stand up for something, to stand up for humanity right now. And as you've heard in the sharing this evening, we're also being called to stand up and express our inner beauty. Let our light shine. We're being invited to stand up into our greatness and claim our divine inheritance and our divine wisdom that will give us the ideas and the impetus to go out in the world and do what is ours to do in the name of freedom, in the name of healing, in the name of prosperity and resources for all. We can all stand up for humanity together.
Thank you, Paulette. Thank you. I want to give everybody a few minutes to write what came up for you. Yeah. And 1 minute, and then I'll stop. I'll start wrapping everything up. So I want to thank everybody. First of all, I want to thank all of the storytellers. What a treat. What an amazing 1 hour. It went by so fast. I had to recheck my notes that I had called on everybody. It felt time flew by, and I really feel touched in my heart from each story. So thank you everybody, and everybody who came live here and held space, and in your listening. I want to thank you as well, because we couldn't have created this without you. So thank you. I am now going to stop the recording officially. And if you want to hang out and share a little bit of your insights amongst us, you can. Otherwise, I declare the meeting officially over.